All right, rock and roll. Welcome to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast for Friday, March 8th, 2025. And as many of you have highlighted for me, I seem to get the dates mixed up quite frequently. I got a better calendar, got an old school calendar, and hopefully I can be a little more proficient and accurate. If it's bad, I'm just going to blame it on Trump. No. It seems to be my one area of dyslexia, that and saying the word Kiev, okay? I don't even remember what that was. I don't even remember how I butchered that in so many different ways. So I'm John, your host. First off, please hit the subscribe and like button. I'd appreciate it. I appreciate your comments. As long as they're cool. No, I like them all. I got into a little fight the other day with somebody, and it was kind of nice. I kind of enjoy the trolls. It means you're making an impact in the world, and off we run. So I live in Southern California, and I live in the mountains outside of it, and I really enjoy it. I like the little animals. I like the peace and quiet. I live at the end of a dead-end street. It's really nice until days like today when it snows. And it snowed pretty heavy. And I got home and I started shoveling. And I was shoveling. And I was shoveling because I want to get out so I can go down to Los Angeles tomorrow, see my folks, do some other errands, stuff like that. I pretty much go down every day into LA. And I was shoveling and the snow just keeps accumulating. Now, I'm an old dude. I'm literally broken in spirit, mind, and body on every way, right? And back in the day, I used to I'll go out there and shovel snow for 6 hours. I remember my parents lived up here in the mountains. They had a weekend house, and I'd come up and I'd shovel for them. And then I'd be shoveling for literally 4 or 5 hours. And let me tell you, that is a workout like I can't even explain, right? I mean, that is literally like you're getting snowboarded, and not the good kind where you're out there with the cool people drinking pina coladas and red wine, right? This is where the snow keeps hitting you in the face. Your face is wet. Your hands are wet. I don't care how many gloves you have. It doesn't really matter. It's just a miserable experience, right? It's cold. It's damp. And I'd come and I'd shovel for a couple hours, and then my mom would look out the window with her vodka and water, and she'd go, you little, not really that neat. And I'm like, Mom, it's, we don't really care this, we're just trying to be able to walk around and exist and get the cars out and stuff. She goes, that's your problem, John, is you need to be a lot more neater. Great. First OCD woman in my life. God bless her. Yeah. Okay. I love her. It seems like all the women in my life got a little OCD. I guess that's what makes them so great. Hey, let's go, right? Like I said, my life is like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm the Brad Pitt guy. I know you say, hey, I knew that just the way you looked. Hey, thanks. Shout out to you. But I'm the guy who goes there and goes, yeah, we'll figure it out when we get there. Everybody, all the women in my life, they got to plan out every step. And I like it. It's really cool. We accomplish a lot. But me, I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out when I get there. I'm not going to stress. I'm not going to start coughing up blood 2 days before, I got a meeting, So I get home and I shovel and I shovel. And then finally I just call it. I'm like, I can't do no more, right? Hopefully the snowplow comes, gets the street out. Because if the snowplow doesn't come, I'm at the end of a mountain on a dead-end street. And if we're literally the last ones they get to. And if they don't come here, it doesn't really matter what I do or what I hope. I'm not getting out tomorrow, and I'm going to be just snowbound. And it kind of reminds me, I was in a relationship back in the day. And she told some whoppers. I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of relationship, but everything she said, she embellished and then squared it, right? Oh, what's the fastest you ever went? Oh, I went 180 in a car. Okay. Hey, what's the fastest you ever went in a boat? Oh, I went 140 in a boat. All right. What's the longest you ever been up? Oh, I've been up 8 days in a row. Yeah, okay. But she grew up in the UP in Michigan. That's the Upper Peninsula. And It is literally like being in the Arctic Circle. It is so bloody cold up there. I've been up there a couple times. Mackinac Island, one of the great places, great little treasures in the United States. I highly recommend it to anybody. No cars are allowed on there. It was in that great movie with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour back in the 80s, 81, I think, Somewhere in Time. Just a beautiful, beautiful movie. It was the original Notebook. Well, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's the original Notebook. And she grew up there, and I asked her once, I said, when you were growing up there as a kid, like, how much snow would you get in a night? Oh, and she looked around and she said, anywhere between 4 and 7 feet a night. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, because I have a Y chromosome and I'm a guy, I don't follow the weather. Okay. That's just something I don't do. I wake up, I look out the window. Okay. Do I need a coat? Whatever. I'm not looking 6 hours down the road. Okay. Women look 10 days in the future. Okay. God bless, or at least the women in my world. Okay. That's fine. Love it. You do what you do. My mom, she's giving me weather reports for next Friday. Like, what does that mean? What am I going to do? Start, doing laundry for my warm weather sweaters or my cold weather sweaters? So I was like, oh my God, 4 to 7 feet in a night. Come on, man. I never even heard anything like that. That's just such BS on BS. But I didn't say nothing. But for some reason, out of all her whoppers, the thousands of whoppers she told me, that one really stuck. So like a summer or two later, we go out to Traverse City, UP of Michigan, visit her mom, and we're going to go out to dinner that night. And as we're getting in the car, I ask her, well, how much snow will you get in a night? A really bad storm. And she goes, oh, I don't know. Anywhere between 5 and 8 feet in a night. And I'm like, oh my God. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? I mean, crazier. Okay. All right. One of my things is I really don't have a good poker face. I wish I did. I'd be a lot more proficient at Hold'em. But I must have just gave it away like, oh, Jesus Christ. I probably shook my head, closed my eyes, just rolled them like I was bit by a shark, whatever it was, right? So we're going down the street, and all the houses, like in my neighborhood, are pitched, right? They're pitched so the snow falls off it so it doesn't accumulate and destroy the roof. It gets too heavy, it'll crack the roof, right? So I'm looking at all these pitched roofs, and at the apex, at the top of the A, there's a door. And it's like 2 foot by 4 foot. And I'm looking at every house, and they all got it. And I'm flummoxed, which obviously, if you listen to this podcast, happens quite frequently. And I go, what's that? And her mom, without missing a beat, looks at me and goes, that's when we get that mythical 5 to 8 feet of snow. We can't get out our doors. We can't get out our windows on the first floor. That's how we get out. And I was like, oh, the whopper was actually true. John got busted calling BS. All right. So we got that, right? So that's my little snow story for the day. We'll see if I get out tomorrow. It looks formidable, but, I did some snow shoveling today, and hopefully it'll be a little nicer tomorrow. It's the weather's been spectacular in LA, but I guess every day there are little winter mists come. Okay, so we're off and running. We're taking no prisoners, telling no lies. All right, SpaceX, their latest Starship test flight ends with another explosion. All right, why can't Elon be on these flights? It would solve a lot of problems for me, for us, for a country. Maybe he ought to just, take ownership of that company and just be in the front seat, man. Go ahead. Apollo 13. Here we go, buddy. But sadly, he wasn't on the flight. It's this rocket that took off was 123 meters, 403 feet. That's like a high rise. That's like a 35-story building. I mean, this thing is just huge. And one of the things that SpaceX has been able to do, when you look at the Apollo rockets, it takes so much to break Earth's gravity that basically the first canister at the bottom of the spaceship, rocket, whatever you want to call it, is filled with fuel. And that is what they need to break up through the first, I think, 3 miles or whatever it is. If somebody's an expert on this, please tell me. I'd like to know. But it's like the first 3 to 5 miles. But once it gets past there, it dispenses with that first piece of fuselage, and it just goes off into the ocean or wherever. That's why most of the space flights were at Cape Canaveral in Florida, right? So that it could just harmlessly fall in the ocean. Well, what SpaceX has been able to figure out is to save that piece, so you don't have to buy a new one every time. So that piece somehow comes back to the landing pod. They've got these big mechanical arms. Think about Wild Wild West with Will Smith or Transformers, and it grabs it and pulls it back. Well, after it took off and it got airborne, it was going to be a 60-mile flight to the Indian Ocean. They were going to dispense some fake satellites into the orbit. Yeah, right. Wink, wink. Fake satellites. Sure. I'm sure the NSA or CIA had nothing to do with that, right? And was going to go 29 miles up, just hit the edge of the atmosphere, and then go into the ocean. Well, quickly after taking off, it lost communication and then blew up. We don't know where it's blown up. Maybe it's like that Malaysian Flight 870 that just disappeared. Wink, wink. Don't know what happened. But it is kind of a mystery that what we're dealing with. And I did find this kind of humorous. I'm glad nobody died. Let's start with that. I'm glad nobody died. I wish Elon would have, but okay. I can't get everything I want. Maybe that'll be my Christmas gift next year. SpaceX, when they launch a flight, I guess they stream it all. And they have commentators, okay? Not just the NFL, not just the NBA. They got commentators and color people who talk about the flight. Oh, wow, Fred, well, that rocket's really going. It's really hitting a great arc, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I didn't know it was a thing, but okay, let's go with that. Well, the SpaceX flight commentator for this one, his name is Dan Hoot. He said, unfortunately, this happened last time too. They had a flight that blew up last week or a couple weeks ago. So we have some practice of how to do this. Yeah, there you go. Elon, the same guy who's killing the government. Yeah, it's going real well for you. NASA also has a contract with SpaceX. I wonder if they're going to cut those. Do you think they are? They're cutting every job. I mean, wouldn't it be smart to just cut the SpaceX contract? Oh, yeah. I want to say it's $18 billion this year that we know of, until they can steal the Verizon contract for another 2.5. They have an agreement with NASA to send their biggest rocket ever, Starship, to Mars by 2030. I really like to see, Elon got the inspector general who was fining him for some of his previous violations. He got him fired. Yeah. Being in Trump's thing in his little orbit doesn't really hurt, does it? Good luck and Godspeed. The corruption is just so obvious. It's so disgusting. He's cutting everything. He's destroying people's lives, but his company is profiting. I mean, how did people not see this? How in the F do you not see what is there? It's right in front of you. He's not hiding it. Jesus H. Christ. You're telling me that these space missions for $18 billion are more important than cutting 70,000 people at Social Security? Oh, yeah, okay. You got your priorities right. Sounds good. Oh, we're keeping the space flights, but we're going to cut cancer research for kids at NIH. Oh, we're going to cut the CDC. We're going to cut health programs. Robert Kennedy's going to run around Texas trying to get people homeopathic remedies for measles. Yeah, working out just great. Really, I'm glad we got our priorities straight. Let's see when Doge starts cutting SpaceX. What's that, John? I'm holding my breath until it happens. I'm going to look like the Macy's Day Parade balloon. That's for sure. All right. Also, odd things in the news. Trump's preparing to close the Department of Education and is directing Education Secretary Linda McMahon, who's the wife of Vince McMahon, the head of WWE, who's had to step down because of allegations of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, I think prostitution, just your run-of-the-mill Republican stuff. Nothing to see here, okay? Not like Jared Kushner's dad. Don't you worry. I'm gonna have a hooker set up my brother-in-law so I can blackmail him. The draft from the Trump White House to Linda says take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the department. Unfortunately, the department, to be closed, needs an act of Congress and also 60 votes in the Senate. We'll see what happens there. It's unlikely it's going to get the 60 votes in the Senate. I couldn't even tell you what Mike Johnson's going to do in the House. But this department does administer a lot of critical things. It has key federal education programs for the state, including student loans. There's a thing right there that now if you get rid of the federal government, they're going to privatize all the student loans. And another thing about Joe Biden, God bless him, he tried to eliminate student loans. And you heard from all these people that, oh, that's unfair, that's not right. Well, they didn't understand what was really going on. And what Joe did, he forgave loans, but after you had paid back the entire principal. So if you had a $60,000 loan, and I've seen the payment structure, it's like $400 a month for like 45 years. I mean, literally, you're paying like $400,000. It's insane, right? And I've seen people on Facebook and on Reddit talk about, I got this $60,000 loan. I've been paying my $500 a month payment for 18 years, and I'm only down $7,000. Okay, working out great. Don't worry about that interest, just accumulating on accumulating. But what Joe did is he said, these people have been paying for 15, 18 years, and they paid 80, 90 grand on a $50,000 loan. They don't have to pay anymore. And this is what sent the Republicans into a frenzy, and they did a very good job of marketing about forgiving student loans. Well, these people paid their loan. They just didn't pay the extra $200K in interest, right? He wanted them to have a life. But, it's nice to see the students voted for Trump over Kamala. All right, we got that. Sometimes you get what you pay for or you vote for, right? Now they're cutting out funding for the Department of Education. They're kind of like the boa constrictor. They may not be able to eliminate you with one fell swoop, but we're going to see that budget. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens to the Department of Education. We're going to see what happens to Medicaid, Medicare. It's going to be an interesting month of March and April. Also, odd things in the news. U.S. layoffs hit a 5-year high in February with 172,000. Excuse my voice. I'm trying to become a backup singer for the Bee Gees. More than a third of the cuts came from the federal government. Elon Musk and Doge, they've just been cutting everybody without taking any names. Trump now has made a remark yesterday that the heads of the departments are going to make the final decisions on cuts, that Doge didn't. It seemed like he was kind of walking back what Elon's trying to do. I don't know. He talks out both sides of his mouth. He talks out his butt, but he doesn't really, it gets kind of muffled because of his adult diaper. Retail and tech also saw job losses of 40 grand last month. I was looking at it. It's the biggest layoffs for a month in 5 years. And I thought, wow, who was the president 5 years ago? Oh, wait a minute. It was Trump. Yeah, there you go. Well, at least he's being consistent. God, I love him. Love that guy, right? All right, another odd thing. Texas is pondering legislation. I'm hoping today they got their electrical grid on. Whether a transgender person can be charged with a felony for identifying as their preferred gender. Now, this comes from Houston area Representative Tom Olverson. This guy's a creep on a creep. Asked the legislator to make it a new crime for gender identity fraud. Now, basically what it is whatever your gender is, at birth, if you're a hermaphrodite or you have some different chromosomal pattern, you're out of luck. You're SOL, right? But what he's saying is, let's say you're born female, and at some point in your life you want to identify as a male, and you put that on a government form, that's a crime. Yeah. They can't solve Uvalde. They can't stop the gun violence, but boy, this is where we're going to put our resources. You know, Greg Abbott isn't held accountable for what happened to those beautiful kids in Uvalde. They were slaughtered. It was genocide. And you know what? He gets reelected. Nothing to see here, man. No, I'm going to blame somebody else. Oh, it's a mental health crisis. You know what? I love California. You know, I like Newsom. I like Karen Bass. But you know what? They got to answer some tough questions about the fires. You know, it's funny. They answer more questions about the fires than Greg Abbott did about the kids getting massacred in Uvalde. Yeah, just keep voting for those Republicans. You keep voting for Ted Cruz. You keep voting for all those a-holes. A-holes on a-holes. Yeah. You get what you vote for. You get what you vote for. What about all those Palestinian people in Michigan who turned the state? Yeah. Bet you're really happy with what's going down in Gaza right now, right? The crime will carry a prison term of 2 years. Good seeing you. Texas, I tell you what, I will not step foot in that state. F that state and F that state. If they want to secede, that's fine, man. You go. See ya. You know, welfare state. Zelensky, we're going to talk about him. I love this guy. I got a bromance with this dude. I admire him probably more than anybody in the world. He was in a bad situation in that terrible setup last Friday in the White House. He's kind of had to eat crow, and the only reason he does, I know he wants to put the middle finger up, but he's doing what he can to save his people and his country. And sometimes you got to eat humble pie. And that's a hard thing for a man like that. You know, his parents, I believe I saw a report, I'm not going to say this is true, his grandparents, were in concentration camps in Germany. This guy knows what tough is, okay? This guy ain't no puss. He ain't nothing, right? This dude's a man on a man. Zelensky this week released a statement saying that the White House meeting was regrettable. It's obviously him kissing the ring for Trump. Trump holds all the cards here, like he so eloquently said. And basically what the problem is, Russia violates every truce agreement. The last truce agreement was in 2019 with Ukraine. They violated it 3 years later when they invaded, right? Trump says, well, if I'm president, they won't violate the ceasefire. Okay, yeah. Let's see what China does with Taiwan. Let's see how that all works out. Andrei Yermak, who's from Zelensky's office in the presidency of Ukraine. He's going to travel to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to discuss possible peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Now, finally, at least, he's going to be involved in the talks. And the bottom line is they got to have troops on the ground to enforce the peace because nobody trusts Russia. Who the hell would? The only guy who trusts Russia is Trump because they've kept his pee video in a hotel under lock and key, right? But I'm going to leave you today with Zelensky's comments yesterday in Brussels at the European summit. He says, let me emphasize once again that Ukrainians do really want peace, but not at the cost of giving up Ukraine. That's their country. Is Russia capable of giving up the war? That is the question that negotiations must answer. Amen, brother. Amen. All right, we're at the end of the podcast. I want to thank you for listening. I enjoy spending the time with you. I hope you enjoy spending it with me. I'm joyful that we get to bond together as we try to save democracy. Don't be sad. We'll be back tomorrow. Go out, fight for democracy. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave some comments. And all you guys and girls out there, you have a beautiful Friday. Peace out.